Welcome to the Healing Bridge podcast. I am your host, Anita McCaw, and I have started this podcast because I have found that there are so many different ways to heal and to embody joy through healing that I wanted to share with you all of the ways, all of the different modalities, all of the different facets of healing that lead us to our path, to our soul mission, to our journey, to finding joy and to expanding into joy and abundance and exciting things and adventure through healing. And it is so overwhelming, so overjoying to have you here with me, listening to me deliver these incredible podcasts with incredible human beings who have just the most beautiful, light-filled souls, and I cannot wait to help you on this healing bridge. Today's episode, I am interviewing somebody who has such an amazing, energetic, calming, and inspiring energy and aura about them. I am interviewing Danielle I. She is an Olympian. She is an author of the book, The Unlikely Olympian. She is podcast host of the Beautiful Souls podcast. She's also an empowerment coach and a public speaker. And in today's episode, we cover topics like quantum leaping. We go through how to structure manifestations, and we also talk about how to not get stuck in the healing cycle, so to move past the wounds that you are maybe experiencing so that healing does not become your whole identity. We also talk about things like body acceptance and love as well, and we also talk a lot about both of our journeys. So I really hope you tune in and absorb everything that Danielle has to offer and everything that she speaks about, because she is a phenomenal human being. Danielle, thank you so much for joining me all the way from Canada.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love a podcast.
Oh, I can tell. I think, our chat before we actually hit record is definitely a really good sign of how well this episode is going to go and flow, I think. So I'm really grateful that you reached out, and I'm so excited to hear some of the things that we're going to talk about and discuss on today's episode. But before we do really sink our teeth into those, I do have a couple of questions to ask you. So my first question is, what is your happiness recipe?
Oh my gosh, great question. Sunshine and nature, stillness, laughter, and some good food.
I love that. I love that so much. Yeah.
It's pretty simple. I don't know. I feel like if you have those things in your life, and yeah, of course, like things like meditation and all those things, but it's like if you have sunshine and if you have nature and if you are around friends and have laughter and have some good food, like you can't not be happy. So.
Oh yeah, amazing. I actually love that. And you're like, good food at the end. And I was like, yes. Yes, I love that. No one's actually even mentioned food anytime I've asked them that question. I'm just like, why is it not a thing? Like, food makes us happy. It's okay.
Totally.
Like, yeah. No, and it doesn't have to be complicated either. I think a lot of the times we can kind of complicate the emotion of happiness. Like, we feel like it's not easy to come by, but it is. Like, you just take it back to basics.
So many of the things that I think make us happy are actually free, right? Like, when we really get down to it, it's like, yeah, it's super cool to go on a nice trip or buy something or whatever, but it's I feel like the most blissful things we can access free.
Oh, right? Absolutely. 110%. And so in the past week, what is the most joy activating thing that you've done?
Good question. I feel like I've had a lot because I intentionally try and do that a lot. I actually was on a call with my group right before this, and I was guiding them through a process which I call quantum calibration. And so it's just kind of like an embodiment practice to kind of shift into the frequency that we're wanting to step into. And so it includes some meditation and some movement, and it's that makes me feel really joyful. Absolutely. I know that was not technically in my happiness recipe, but like it's doing something that I love, right? And we had laughter and we had movement and we didn't have any good food, but like just as well that being around people that like I feel like when I'm doing my soul mission stuff, that brings me like deeply happy. But also on the weekend in Canada, it was Canadian Thanksgiving this past weekend, so I got to spend Sunday like with my whole family, and it was so much good food and like family and laughter and all of that. So that was like on another totally different spectrum, but like equally just as beautiful.
Oh, amazing. That sounds so good. And yeah, like, of course, we're going to feel activated and happy when we're doing our soul mission, as you said. Like, yeah, of course, we're going to be like, fuck yes, that's exactly what I'm, here for. Yeah, and it just brings that sense of purpose. So that's so good. Yeah. I didn't even know Canadian Thanksgiving was a thing, though.
It's like, it's always at the beginning of October, and then Americans have, I think ours is better personally, because there's not like Black Friday and stuff. And it's been like so sunny in Vancouver lately, like, and it's not usually this sunny at this time of year, so I feel like that's just generally made me a happier person, because seasonal depression is like real. So that's why I'm leaving when winter gets intense to come back to Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually thinking about that earlier before you jumped on the call. I was like, she has the best of both worlds. She can go and live in Canada and explore like the beautiful like lakes and mountains and scenery of Canada, and like be home in the summertime, and then she can just like scoot on back to Perth, sunny WA, in like the Canadian winter. And I was like, you've got it locked down. Like I'm
very lucky. I like a little bit of winter. Like give me like a month, weeks, because it's like nice to be a bit cozy, and like if it snows, it's very magical. But then after that, you're like, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to sunshine, right? So that's what I've developed, is like my
definitely
summer in both places, and like 1 month of winter, and then I'm happy.
Like I think that's definitely how I would love for my life to pan out, and definitely something that I'm working towards as well. I'm just like, I want to be able to like just be in summer the whole time. Winter, okay, like except for you, like you say like a month. For me, I would be like
a month.
For me, I would be like a week. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm done, guys. Like let's move on. And our last intro question is if you are working with any crystals at the moment, which one is it? But if you're not, I actually do have one that I kind of picked up for you as well.
Oh, I would love to know what you picked up for me. I was wondering, like, usually I have on my desk, I actually have my amethyst pendulum with me, and I've been using that a lot lately, but I also usually have my citrine crystal.
Oh, amazing.
It's not here right now, but those are like two that have been in my field lately.
Yeah.
What crystal do you have for me? I want to know.
Okay, so it's actually a really new one. It was only discovered in 2019, but it's actually, I'll show it to you. So it's Caribbean calcite.
Cool.
Yeah, so
you can see why that's called Caribbean. That totally.
Yeah, definitely. But it was.
You know what's crazy? I'm going to the Caribbean on Saturday, so it's crazy that you said that. How did you know that?
I just picked it up. I was thinking. I was like, like I always kind of sense into it, and I was like, what do I feel like this person really embodies? And I was like, oh, this one. Like I've just got this little book case in my house, and the shelves, instead of it like being books, is basically all of my woo-woo stuff. So there's like hundreds of crystals on there. So Caribbean calcite is essentially used for third eye and throat chakra activation, and it really creates that really strong balance between trusting your intuition and clarity and peace of mind. So I picked that one up and I was like, this feels like Danielle Kettlewell.
That's so cool. I love that. I wrote that down in my notes. Yes. And it's crazy because, like, I haven't been to the Caribbean in a long time, but I'm actually going in 2 days. So for you to say that is, like, so trippy, right?
Yeah, that's a bit wild. It is. So I was like, I think obviously, with you being a Olympic synchronized swimmer as well, like water definitely comes into that. Which definitely also leads us on to our questions and our interview, which I'm so excited for. So
let's get into it.
Definitely. Let's sink our teeth in. So you describe yourself as an empowerment coach. So can you just explain or describe for everyone listening what that is?
Great question. I'm almost like had a giggle when I saw that you're going to ask me that, because it's like I it's such an interesting thing when you get into this field and people really like want to have a label. They're like, describe yourself. And I'm like, I don't know, I feel like I'm a unicorn. But like, I do these things that make people feel happier, and we do some healing, we do some empowerment. And so, I feel like there's so many people in the field of like coaching, which is amazing because coaching is really incredible when you find the right people. And so, it's funny because I used to kind of identify, and I know, I love that this is called the healing bridge, and we'll touch on this today, but I used to identify more with like, where I was, which is, I guess, is like people's wounds. And I would say like, I help people like reclaim their worth. I help people heal, which is definitely part of my work. But I've really recently been really switching and kind of, I was toying with like liberation for a while. And then the word empowerment feels really potent to me because it's kind of like beyond healing. Where do we go to from there? And it's like, how do we empower ourselves into our best life around our worth, around our mindset, around our dreams, our goals, around really like whether it be our business as well, if we're wanting to kind of activate our business, because I've been doing that as well lately, and it's kind of in all different aspects. So I love kind of taking people on this journey of, let's really, if you're starting out in my world, it's like, let's look at the stuff that's holding you back, right? We have to look at that. But then on the other side, what mindset can you have to help you achieve what you want? Where do you want to go? And then if people move into the business realm, it's like, cool, how can I help you guys in that area as well? So that's kind of like the trajectory. So I've given myself the hat of empowerment coach because it feels very true to who I am. But who knows, maybe in a year I'll change it again.
Us as human beings, for whatever reason, we love being labeled and defined. Like, it's wild. Like, what you're bringing to the world, everything that you just said, I'm just like, yes, that is so similar to what I feel like my path and my journey is as well. So yes, put us into a box.
It's like as human beings, we deeply just want to understand who we are. And I guess that's what labels do.
Yeah.
And it helps us explain ourselves to other people.
It's really funny that that's like part of like, a piece of us. It's like, why do we want to know like what our astrology sign is, like in our sun, moon and rising? And yeah, it's so interesting that we like kind of put ourselves into those categories. And sometimes they can be really helpful, but sometimes we need to kind of like break out of those little boxes, those cages that we do put ourselves in as well. So yeah, it's a really interesting, thing that human beings do, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, you also on your website, so you're an Olympian.
So, I am.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I still, when people say that, I'm like, that's me. Holy crap, that's so cool.
You're like, yeah, I did that. Yeah. So you're an Olympian and you went to the Rio Olympics back in 2016 as a synchronized swimmer. But on your website, you describe yourself as an average girl. And to me, I'm just like, there is nothing about this woman in front of me that is average at all. And you say that you manifested or you quantum leaped your place there. So can you touch on that for us? Like, why would you describe yourself as average?
Yeah, great question. It's a pretty epic story. That's why I really feel like it was a quantum leap, because I know it's so funny to me that people see me now and this, I think this is a part of like when you stop at like I have like 15 thoughts at once. When you stop identifying as kind of your wound and then you move into kind of the future archetype that you've been kind of calling in, then people forget that you were once in a place that was kind of just like everyone else that was starting out. And so, when I was growing up, I did the sport of synchronized swimming, which I always loved, but I was not the best. Like I just did it because I loved it and I was part of a team. But I was literally the bottom of the team. I was like the reserve. I really struggled with my weight and my like self-belief and my self-confidence, and it's never about weight, but it was just kind of an expression of my own like shame and not knowing how to like feel my own feelings and hold the things that I was going through. And so I was this girl like back in when I was like 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, up until I quote unquote retired from my sport when I was 17, 18 years old. And I was like, I literally was never good in my mind, ever going to go to the Olympics. Like, I was swimming in Canada at the time because I was born and raised here. My parents are Australian, and so this is where it gets a little bit complicated. My parents are from Sydney. They immigrated to Canada. I was born here, grew up here, and I was like, cool, I'm done. Like, I'll never make the Canadian team. Like, to give some perspective, basically, if there's spots on the team in Canada, then you have to make the top 12 to be able to try out for the team if there are spots available. And I was ranked, like, I was less than 100. Like, I was below, like, on the other side of 100. So, like, I was not close to making the Canadian team, right? And I just kind of always identified as average, and I identified as not good enough. And I went to, university. I kept coaching because it was something that I loved, and I swam a little bit on the side just for fun because it really brought me joy. And I had this crazy experience where I got a concussion when I was in university through training one day, and it really led me into this kind of deep depression at the time. And I think we all have these moments in our life where we basically go like, why the fuck is this happening to me? Like, what the hell? Like, I feel like I've been screwed over by life. And I had to drop out of university. I had to drop out of I was at uni, but I didn't love what I was doing. I was kind of that kid that, like, I was like, okay, I guess I'll go. Like, I don't know what else I'm gonna do. Like, general arts, like, woo. That was me. I was not superb in any of those areas. And when I was just the day after my 21st birthday, I was chatting with my friend on the phone, and she got a message, and funny enough, both of us were Canadian Australians. So I had dual citizenship. Both of us did synchronized swimming, and she got a message from the assistant national team coach of the Australian synchronized swimming team. The world of synchro is quite small. Like, it's not like as big as things like soccer or anything like that. And so through the grapevine, this coach knew of her, and she said to her, hey, like, do you want to, any chance you want to come to Australia and try out for the Australian team? We're looking, this was 2013, we're looking for more people to try out for the team. After 2012, a whole bunch of the Australian team retired, and we want to rebuild, and we want to qualify Australia for the Olympics in 2016. And so, me being like hype girl of my friends, I was like, yeah, you go for it, this is amazing, look at this opportunity, yeah. And it's like, so often we do this, right? We'll like cheer on our friends, but like when it comes to our opportunities, we'll be like, no, I can't do that. And then my friend at the time, she turned around and she said to me, she's like, you know what, Danielle, like, you could do this too. And I was like, no, what are you talking about? Like, I'm concussed. I was never very good. She was better than me. She was a better athlete than me. I was like, are you joking? Like, you have to be joking. Like, that's not possible. And I sat with that. And I think, we're not all gonna get like an opportunity like that in our lifetime, but we all get opportunities here and there, and sometimes we count ourselves out from those opportunities because we don't think that we're worthy of it. And even though it scared the living daylights out of me, and there were so many hoops to jump through, like, I was in Canada, I didn't know how I was gonna like get to Australia, like, I didn't know any of these things of how it was possible, but I just had this moment where I was like, someday I will pass away. And someday I will pass on this planet. And if I am lying on my deathbed and looking back at my life, I know that I'm always going to say that I wish that I went for it, even if I fail. Because I don't want to always wonder what my life could have been if I was brave enough. And that like chilled me to the bones. And even though I was so scared of people's judgments, I was so scared of failing, I was so scared of everything, I said, you know what, like, fuck it. Let's give this a go. I know this sounds crazy, but let's try. And I went to talk to my parents at the time and tell them, because, I was concussed, and they were kind of taking care of me. I couldn't really do much. And I went into them and I was like, so this is what I want to do. I want to try and go to the Olympics. And like, bless their souls, they're beautiful humans. But like, as anyone, they're like, almost laughed in my face. They're like, what? Like, what? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, did you get hit again? But I was serious. And one of the things that is good is I can be very stubborn. When I decide that I want to do something, I'm like, no, I'm freaking gonna do it until I fail or until it happens. And there were so many obstacles against me, but I was like, I'm going to just at least try. And so I went and I looked for an OT to help me with my concussion. And long story short, in like 2 months, I was like on the plane to Perth. I had never been to Perth before. I didn't know anyone in Perth. I knew that there were I was one of 16 girls that were trialing for this team, and I was never the best. And the caliber of the Australian team isn't as high as the caliber of the Canadian team, but even though then I went to this first training camp and I was the bottom of the ranks. And I was like, I'm one of 16. But then I was like, I'm one of 16. My chances just went from like nothing to like 1 of 16. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give this everything that I got. And I really say that I quantum leaped because I went all in, like as all in as someone could go. I moved across the world. I got out a student line of credit. Like I like literally went all in. I was like, you know what? I'm going to freaking go for this. And I still have moments when I'm like, was I like, it must have been a concussion. Like, was I crazy? Like, that's insane. Like, at 21, I moved to the other side of the world. I didn't know anyone. I have family in Australia, but they're in Sydney, and Sydney is basically the other side of the world.
It's basically Canada. It's basically Canada from Perth. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not close or anything, but I was just so. I think I had something in front of me that was, even though it was so scary, it excited me so much because I always believed that I could do more. I always believed that there was more in me, and I said, I'm going to just give this everything I freaking got. And, that was the beginning of 2014. I moved to Perth, and then in 2016, I was the fourth out of I came fourth in the Olympic team trials. Like, it blows my mind what? And it wasn't my talent. Like, I will always say, like, my book is called The Unlikely Olympian because I'm not the most talented, but I'm determined and I'm willing to work on myself. And I have the mindset to be like, you know what, I'm not the best, but how can I improve? How can I grow? And that, I really believe, is what got me to the Olympics. And I made this vow with the universe when I moved to Australia. I was like, you know what, if I somehow pull this shit off, if some freaking miracle happens and this works out for me, I'm going to spend the rest of my life sharing my story and helping people. Because if I can do this, and I was nobody, then we all can achieve what we want to achieve in this life, right? We have to be able to lean into fear. We have to be able to take leaps. We have to be able to go for things that might seem crazy at the time, but we have to believe in ourselves. And there's so much more possible for us in this life than I think that we give ourselves credit for. And I feel like the Olympics, for me, like, I want to use it as a service of proof to all of us what is possible.
Amazing.
So that's why I call myself average.
Wow. I got goosebumps like 3 different times during that story, and it's so true. Like, growing up, I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to kind of cultivate and nourish my creativity through that, through performing and, I guess very much so being seen, like being out there, being vulnerable, being seen. But I was like, but I'm not the best. So why would I even try? Like, there were so many times that I just kind of prevented myself from even putting my foot on a stage or picking up a script or going to an audition or even going to an acting class, because I was like, if I was truly good at this, if I was truly meant to do this, I would just be that naturally gifted that it would just be put on a platter for me. And so to hear your story of how your mindset was like, no, I just need to work hard. I need to be determined and I need to push myself, and I need to have that self-belief to know that I can do it. So it's not just the fact that, you say that you're average. I very much doubt that you're average. But you worked your ass off for what your goal was. And that's such a huge part of manifestation. A lot of people say just put it out there to the universe. And I think that that's all that it needs to be. But there's so much more behind that process and those steps that you need to take. So, obviously, my life has shifted in very different ways, but I still have that part of me that would like to explore those creative options. But I'm so much more willing to do that now. Because I have done that work on myself, and I know that it's okay to not be the best at something, which is a big part of my learning, is I need to be the best. I need to be I need to be ahead of the pack, and I need to let go of that. That's actually something that I'm working on at the moment, is not knowing and allowing yourself to learn and to nourish things that you are passionate about, that you may not just be the best at yet, but it does not mean that they're not worth pursuing. So I love that story, and I love that you shared that with us.
And I think it's so important what you said, like, because I think so many people stop themselves because of quote unquote perfectionism, and like they're wanting to be perfect before they get started, and there really is no perfect. And sometimes, like, you know, talent, there is the people at the top of the field where you combine talent and you combine hard work and the amazing things will happen. But most people get to where they are, not because of talent, but because of passion and because of their ability to work on themselves. I saw so many of my teammates that were more skilled than me and were naturally talented, naturally flexible. Like all of these, so many things in synchro were hard for me to get, other than the mindset stuff. Like I could work on myself, but the actual tactical skills were challenging. And I saw when I had friends and teammates that were naturally talented, but they didn't have necessarily the passion or the drive that I had, and I'm an Olympian and they're not, you know. And like, and there, of course there's a bit of opportunity in there and there's bits of luck in there, but I really believe that luck comes when we choose to like rise up and believe in ourselves. And when we're walking the path, there will be luck that finds every single one of us, right? But we have to see that we are worthy of the opportunities that come our way, because I think so many of us get more opportunities than we give ourselves credit for. We just don't see ourselves as worthy enough of being there. But when we can fucking own that somehow, we really open different portals of possibility for ourselves.
Yeah. Danielle, I think I'm in love with you.
Oh my God, you're so really passionate.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love to see it. And yeah, everything that you are saying and you're speaking about, it just resonates so much. So again, thank you so much for sharing. I do as well, like, so I know that some people may not know what, I guess, a quantum leap is. So that's just like a little bit of a quick question that we can kind of inject into this, just for the people that may not know what a quantum leap is. So how would you describe what a quantum leap is?
That's a great point, because I actually didn't know that quantum leap. I wasn't like, I'm quantum leaping. Afterwards, I started to hear about it. I was like, holy shit, I did that.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's so funny how the universe works, because lately there's this show in Canada that's called a Quantum Leap, and I'm like seeing it on posters everywhere, and I'm like, is it my time again? But I just signs from the universe. But Quantum Leap is really basically like, as an example, I'll use my experience as an example. In 2012, I was sitting at home in Vancouver, Canada, watching the London Olympics on TV, looking at these amazing like women that were competing in synchronized swimming, thinking that they were just the freaking bee's knees, and like crying because I was like, oh my gosh, the Olympics is so amazing. And in 2016, 4 years later, I was competing at the Olympics. How does that happen, right? That doesn't make sense. That like literally doesn't make logical sense, right? Like there's no other way that you can describe that as like than a quantum leap. But it really is kind of leaping into a different timeline, having such a big shift in your life that doesn't actually make logistical sense, because people are going to ask, how did you do that? And you're like, you look back and you're like, I'm not fully sure, but it happened.
Yeah.
But this is going to happen for all of us, right? And I really believe that like the thing is, I think so many people resist, is a quantum leap comes from doing something that's uncomfortable. And I don't mean uncomfortable and you have to like stress out your nervous system and burn yourself out. I mean uncomfortable in doing something that scares the shit out of you, but you also feel like it's going to expand you. And that's one of the things that I realized that I did. I was like, I was so scared. There were so many avenues for me to go out. There were so many avenues of failure in this possibility, but it's just like, I literally was scared and I went all in. And I think if more of us did that, all in on something that was aligned, I think that's really important to remember. And when I went all in, I also continued to be self-aware. And so like, what in your life are you like, what is calling you that you're like, oh, where do I need to go all in? Like, if you really want to take a big leap in your life, it's going to happen from you leaning into something that's a bit uncomfortable. Because when you move through, even if we look at, to get super woo-woo on everyone, if you haven't heard of the Map of Consciousness by Dr. David Hawkins, it shows the vibrational frequency of emotions. And when when we are in emotions of shame and guilt, we're in contracting emotions. So basically, you know, we all have those moments where you might have an anxiety attack or a panic attack, or you just feel deep in shame and you just feel like you get every red light, everything goes wrong, everything's kind of falling in on itself. And so those are contractive emotions. But then there's also expansive emotions. And the very interesting thing that I love is the leap between the energy that is contracting and the energy that is expanding is when you access the frequency of courage. And when you step into courage, you actually step into frequencies and emotional vibrations that are expansive. And that's what happens when you lean into fear, right? You do something that's scary, but you do it anyways because you know that you want to. And then magical things can happen on the other side. And that is, it's hard, but it's so powerful as well. So I kind of went on a tangent, but I hope that it describes Quantum Leap.
No, you did. I really enjoyed the hand signals as well, like yeah, the hand movement. Me too. Yeah. Like, I don't know, you know, if someone ever tied my hands behind my back, I don't know how I think I would actually get through a story.
I'll probably do it with my head, my nose
yeah.
or something.
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you so much for that. And yeah, that sounds really interesting. So I'm definitely going to have to go and get that book as well. That sounds amazing.
It's called Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. That's where he speaks about it.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I'm adding that to my list. Okay. And your work as an empowerment coach and as a speaker, as a podcast host, as an author, as, you know, someone who is in the public speaking realm in schools and with groups of women and, you know, and businesses, your work does really focus a lot on manifestation and cultivating a mindset that will bring manifestation into fruition. So I had a friend who asked me really clearly, was like, how do you structure your manifestation process?
Love it. Great question. Okay, so I have 5 steps.
Well, I love it. I love it.
Really, really clear. First of all is number 1, you have to decide. Like, and I think that I know this is so simple, and I say decide and declare, because you have to actually decide what you want. And this is actually the thing that a lot of people can struggle with, because they're like, they don't fully go all in. They don't go energetically in on the decision. They kind of dabble with it. You know, the dabblers are like, I'm just gonna like dip my toe in, and then nothing happens, because it's like, no, you have to like decide that this is the reality that I want. This is something that I want to manifest. And I really believe declare, because you know, when we have a goal and then we just say it in our mind that we're going to start on Monday and we don't tell anyone, and then on like Monday at 3:00 when it like doesn't work out, we're like, it's fine, I didn't tell anyone, right? So like, this is where I feel like declaring to yourself, to the universe. I'm not saying you have to go post it on like Instagram and tell everybody, but just having something basically bigger than just you in your mind as a declaration that this is something that I desire, right? Because how's it supposed to energetically find you if you like don't tell anyone, right? If you don't even say it out loud. And so that's the first one. And then the second one is I say reveal and heal. And this is really important. And this is really the process of healing, because healing is a part of manifestation. And it's revealing the belief systems that are not serving us to access the reality that we want, and healing them and rewiring them, because we have a subconscious mind that runs 95% of our life. But if our subconscious mind is in the belief system that we are not worthy, is in the belief system that it's not capable for us, we're not enough, we actually won't be able to energetically attract that. So we do have to like work on ourselves and work on our mind and say, okay, well, what are some of my limiting beliefs? What are some of my blockages? What are some of the lies that are coming up when I'm saying that I want this? And we have to start to look at those parts of ourselves. So that's number 2. Number 3, I say affirm and confirm. So really it's just continue to act as if in the reality of your desires. So taking the action, right? Doing, whether it be a daily visualization practice, right? You actually have to, this is kind of the action part of manifestation. Like, you have to do something, right? If you want to start a podcast, you can't just like sit on your like cushion until you wait for someone to like publish it for you. You have to like put yourself out there, and you have to continue to confirm that that is a reality that you want to bring forward. And then number 4, I say gratitude. Really like have an attitude of gratitude, because what you're wanting to call forward is a feeling, and when you can access that feeling in the now by gratitude really is the ultimate state of receivership. And so be grateful for what you already have. Because if you think that you're going to be happy when you receive what you're manifesting, you're probably in for a big wake-up call, because it's really about the person you're going to become in the process of getting there. And then number 5 is release expectations of when it's going to come. And this is like the hardest thing, right? Because we're like, I want to manifest a dream partner by Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Like, it's like never fucking happens the way that we think it's going to happen, right? Like, the universe does not work on our timeline. It works on a different timeline. So it's really like falling in love. And this can be hard depending on where you are, but like falling in love with your life where you are at now and releasing the expectation, because so often the expectation that we have is based on a validation that we're wanting to receive, that we are enough. Because we go, well, if I receive it, then that means I'm enough. That's why we got to work on our internal shit. That's why we got to do the inner work, right? And so number 5, releasing expectation could be the hardest, but it's also really powerful.
I think definitely like number 5, like it's, and I think so many people get deterred from manifestation and doing the work because they're like, but I wanted this, so like why don't I have it? Why don't I have it yet? Because I asked the universe, I put it out there. But it's like so many of us are like, you know, for me, I'm just like, I'm manifesting like Chris Hemsworth as my husband. And I'm just like, bro, where are you? Like, why aren't you here yet? Like, pardon me, sir, kind of thing. And it really doesn't work like that. So I think there's not a limit to what you can receive, but you get limited by putting your own expectation on it. So for me, like Chris Hemsworth is like, he is happily married with children. He's never gonna like rock up to my front door and be like, Anita, I am madly in love with you, let's start our life together. You know, that's never gonna happen. But in saying that, like, you have to be flexible with what you have to. Yes, you have to be really clear on what you want, but you have to be flexible on what comes to you. Like, as you said, you know, having being grateful and having gratitude, you can't, I always say to people, if you have a really specific person in mind for your future manifestation, so say if it's someone has like a really new budding romance, or they're not too sure where it's going to go, but they want to get married in like 2 years time or something like that, and they put that expectation on that person, that new relationship, and that's really, really specific. Sometimes when it doesn't work out or pan out, they get really confused because that's not what they wanted to manifest. You know, they wanted to manifest that particular person in their life. And I always say, like, you know, when you're bringing other people into your manifestations in such a specific way, it can really be hard when that doesn't pan out, because other human beings have free will. You know, you have to acknowledge what they are wanting from life as well. And that can be just like such a big part of the journey, and releasing and letting go and just allowing what's going to come. So yes,
I think as well, like, we forget that there could be actually something better out there for us.
Yeah.
And like, we get so fixated on the fact, like, I would have never even been able to even dream of getting to the Olympic Games. Like, that wasn't even in my consciousness, but then that came into my reality. But if I was so fixated on something else, say like I wanted to be an architect or something, this is the only thing, like, I need that, and if I don't get that, then I'm going to be disappointed. Like, I wouldn't have been able to basically be open to this reality. There's a really great book called The Surrender Experiment, if you have heard of it or read it, and it's basically this man's journey from, he was kind of like a hippie yogi guy that just wanted like a life of solitude and like meditating, and he ended up becoming a billionaire of a tech company through complete surrender. And so it's an incredible story, and I really believe it's like, we get to also consciously like create with the universe, but we also have to believe, like, I've been in moments, and I've spoken a bit on like my podcast and stuff, where like my fiance and I like almost broke up, and I had a moment where I was like, how could this be? Like, I thought that this is the love of my life, that was my twin flame, my soulmate, my like all of these things. But then in that moment, I had to like come to this awareness, is like, what if, even though this seems so insane to me at the moment, what if there's something better out there? And I had to, and what happened when I allowed myself to think of that is I released expectation, the desperation that me and him needed to work out. And I had this trust in that the universe was going to give me the best option if I kept, being in alignment with the best version of myself. And because I released that expectation, we went through our own healing, and that made our relationship stronger. And now we're together and we're getting married, right? And so I think it's like so important for us to remember, it's like, the saying this or something better, because that allows so much more of an abundance perspective around what we're calling forward.
Oh, 100%. But again, it's like the hardest piece. And people who are just like starting out, they're just like, but what? That's exactly what I want. And that, comes back to what we were saying before. We just like to put ourselves in those boxes. We're allowed to have as many dreams as we want. We're allowed to pursue as many things as we want. We don't have to be one thing. It's not set in stone. You can pivot at any point. And I think that that's really important for people to acknowledge about themselves, that they don't have to be defined by one label or one circumstance or one relationship. I think that's a really big piece for me, that I personally want people to see like you're not defined by what other people see you as. You put your own, structures around yourself, your own walls up, and you can live within those, or you can start to break them down. It's completely up to you. You just have to be willing to do the work and to find what's going to work for you, because it's all different for everybody. But you also talk about, balancing masculine and feminine energies as well. So I think as well, for a lot of people, they're still very masculine is male and feminine is female, which really isn't the case. So could you maybe touch on, what a masculine energy represents and what a feminine energy represents, and how those two work together to, bring manifestations to fruition?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, we all have masculine and feminine energy inside of all of us, no matter how you identify as a human being. Every single one of us has masculine and feminine energy inside of us. And it is a universal law that exists as well. And the masculine energy is really, it's like the structure. It's like the go, go, go. It's like the discipline. It's like the internal motivation. It's like creating the plan. And our society is very much based on the masculine energy, right? We really value masculine energy. It's like I think it's really starting to shift, but it's like the hustle culture. It's like get up at 5 a.m. and sleep when you're dead. And this is, I'm so passionate about this because I used to be so deeply in the masculine. I think as an athlete, I would just train so much, and that was the only option that I had. I used to literally say I'll sleep when I'm dead. Well, that doesn't actually work out for you, Danielle, because you'll get burnout. Right? Yeah. And I think so many people are experiencing that now. I know so many people are clients that have burnout. But the masculine isn't bad. We do need the masculine. And then the feminine energy is the receiving energy. It's really the flow energy. It's the creativity. It's the intuition. It's the innovation energy. And it's so beautiful because it is slower, but it's also open and it's so flowy, and it is incredible. But also, if we only had the feminine energy, and this is kind of I lived in Ubud in Bali for a while, and that's ultimate feminine energy. Everyone's in the feminine energy, and it's so funny because it's nothing gets done. I lived there for a while, and I was you just can't get anything done because no one is oh, I'll just meet you when I meet you, and I walk into you on the street, and it's just it's a beautiful thing, right? But it's nothing would come to fruition if we're all in feminine all the time. And the real magic comes is when we work on holding the masculine and the feminine inside of both of us. And so it's the structure, or the plan allows space for us to thrive in the creativity. And the innovation and the flow and the receiving is more powerful when we create sometimes the boundaries and things like that, right? So I believe in, manifestation, in business. It's how can we be in the energy of both? It's not just go, go, go. I need to write down my 37 affirmations every single morning at 5 a.m. to manifest what I want, and work so hard and sleep 4 hours a night. It's not just that. No, it's also the energy how can I slow down, and how can I enjoy life, and how can I really get into the state of bliss that I'm wanting to be in when I'm attracting what I desire. And I feel the masculine as well as the action, and I feel the feminine is really the inner work and the feeling state. And so when we start to combine those, I think that there's no perfect balance. We're always working on finding balance, right? Then we start to get into a really, really like prosperous, and I say that like from an energetic state and like abundant state where we really get to be in the flow. And that's taken me like some time to like heal my masculine wounds. And I think so many of us, right? Because we've been taught differently, but I hope that's a good explanation.
That's a fantastic explanation. And it's very true. I love it. And they work in synchronicity, and I myself, I get very stuck in the masculine energy like a lot, and I don't allow that flow. And it's just like a constant process of being like calm down, like come back to things, and like allow yourself to breathe and allow yourself that space. So it's a conscious effort to be in both, really. Like you do choose, and you find ways to be in both. And so I think it's really beautiful that it is, as you said, it's starting to shift, it's starting to change. Even in the mining world, like I can see some really big changes. So, I worked a lot in the gym space up on mine sites in Western Australia, and was running yoga classes, and I would, integrate, a lot of breath work, meditation. And the people that were coming to these classes were, people who are in a very masculine environment. They have a lot of stereotypes shoved down their throats of what it means to be a man, or how, their days and their lives should be structured. But I still had a lot of men who were in that culture, part of that culture, showing up to those classes and really benefiting from it and being open to it. So to see that in such a previously narrow-minded environment has been incredible and really eye-opening to me, and gives me a lot of hope for where our world is going, I think. And so I think the more we talk about it, the more we discuss it, and the more we talk about the balance, it's just going to start to spread and trickle down. And, the next generations coming through, they're just going to be so woke. And
I know, right?
Yeah. So
babies
yes,
through.
absolutely. So I'm actually really excited for where the world's headed, like without being, putting my head in the sand. I understand there's still things that need to be fixed and worked on, but I think the more people that are aware of our energies and how to use them, how to work with them, it's just going to lead to just an exceptional human race in the future, I guess. Yeah.
I believe so as well.
Yeah.
I have so much hope.
Yes, me too. Basically, a big part of being able to grow and develop as a human being is doing the inner work to heal and to help us heal our mental state, as well as our physical state. What was one of your healing journeys that helped you to start your mindset shift?
Yeah, great question. One of them. I feel like once you kind of start to awaken to all of this kind of world and stuff, and we can call it mental health, we can call it spirituality, we can call it personal development, kind of that stuff, I believe there's kind of like, usually there's like a bulk that we need to like face, right? It's like, it can feel really big at first. And then like we might need to do a lot of work, and maybe depending on what you do and how you face it, that might take a few months, it could take a few years. And then after that, we're going to just have, I hope people have the tools to just continually like allow yourself to live a beautiful life, and then face the healing when it comes up, because there's going to be things that happen in life, right? There's going to be deaths and births and hard things and breakups and all those things. And so I would say like I think when I really started to face it, funny enough, was probably like deeply, maybe only like 5 years ago, when I think I had awareness of it, and I have always been quite a self-aware, like old soul person, but I was in this space where I was like just so afraid of being with myself, and like I was so afraid of stillness. I was so in the masculine, like I would like I like couldn't have a moment of stillness, because I was so afraid of what would come up in my mind that I hadn't fully faced if I allowed myself to be still. And so I was afraid of meditation. Like I was like, literally I would be like 1 minute meditation, like I'm just gonna look at it for 1 minute. And I was also, for a while, I was in a relationship for 5 years, which was just, it wasn't a bad relationship, it was meant to be what it was meant to be, but my partner at the time, I was Aussie and I was in Perth, and he just wasn't kind of open to any of that. He's from a small country town, like, um, very Aussie, like, beautiful person, love to have a drink, and I'm very much stereotyping because he's a good person, but he just wasn't some people just aren't interested in any of that. And so I think that blocked my ability to go deeper for a while. And then finally one day I found the power inside of me to leave that relationship. Again, not that it was bad or abusive or anything, we just weren't right together. And I finally started to face all the things that I was scared of, all of the self-worth stuff, all of the things that had happened in my childhood. And a lot at the beginning, it was really just about feeling worthy enough, facing my body image stuff, which I had avoided for so many years, and just feeling good enough. My big thing was I just wanted to feel good enough. And I know that this does sound crazy but at the same time, I think it's such a good example because I got to the fucking Olympic Games and I was still just trying to feel good enough, right? Because if you don't feel internally good enough, nothing externally is going to validate that internal feeling, right? And so I started to get into meditation and journaling, and I started to go to healings and Reiki and work with coaches and programs, and just started to really look at all of the stuff that was oof, this is a fucking lot, because I had done the mindset work to get me to the Olympic Games, but I hadn't done the deep looking at it, and I was so scared of myself. And I think a lot of people could probably resonate, because it's you get so scared of what you're going to find in the corners of your consciousness, right? That maybe you're a bad person, or maybe you're inherently unworthy, or maybe there's just something wrong with you. And I think this is where I really opened deeper to spirituality, because we come from this place. I grew up Catholic, so first of all, working through my Catholic wounds and stuff like that. Not I just don't resonate with that anymore. And there's a lot of great things from Catholicism, but just really understanding that I'm a soul, and none of us came down here better than each other. We all came down here on an equal slate, and we just go through experiences in life based on the things that our soul wants to learn on this karmic journey. And we have agreed to a lot of the things that we have gone through. And I believe those of us that are aware of it, we have come down here to heal that, because we're really living in a generation that's here for the first time that has the ability to actually heal. Because if we think of basic psychology of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, for fucking thousands of years, we were at the bottom of safety and security. You can't worry about healing if you're worried about where you're going to get your food, or if your house is going to be bombed or broken into, or you're going into war. You're just not in that space, right? And so many of us are in this space where, there are some people in the world that aren't there yet, but there's so many of us are in the space where we have homes, we have governments that relatively take care of us, we have food, we have jobs. Okay, now we're going to move up. And once you start to move up into deeper levels of self-awareness, you realize that there's things that you've been holding on to that don't serve you. And there was things from my childhood that I was holding on to that just really didn't serve me. And I think for a long time I didn't face them, and this is something I really emphasize, is because I always wanted to heal everyone else, but usually when you want to do that, you're the one that needs the healing the most, right? Yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
I did. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't allow myself, because I had almost too much compassion, where I had two parents that loved me. I didn't grow up in a domestic violent household. I didn't experience war. I didn't have major trauma in my life. I had things that have happened, absolutely, but I was how do I even deserve to touch those things? My life isn't bad. And I think that this has kind of come from, my parents as well, because my parents are in their 70s, and kind of the consciousness of, okay, well, I'm going to have children, and I'm going to put a roof over the head, and I'm going to love them, and then they should be fine. And so kind of the reality that I grew up in is well, you have everything. Why are you upset? We love you. You have a house. You're taken care of. You can't be not okay. And, that's just a representation of them being able to hold themselves through that. So I just felt I could never touch that stuff, because how could I, there's people that have been through worse. And I think that's the thing that blocks so many people sometimes from going into that work, because they think other people have it worse off. But one of the things that I say, to my clients and in my programs is like, all of our pain is equal, because I have never lived in anyone else's lived experience in this lifetime. I don't know what it's like to walk in anyone else's shoes but my own. And when I have the capacity to face my own healing and hold myself through the hardness, I actually have more light and space inside of me to hold space for other people, because people can only meet you to the levels that they've met themselves. And once you meet someone who's met themselves at the deepest of levels, you can feel so incredibly held and seen. And I started to realize that if I wanted to gift the world, if I wanted to help the world, I had to help myself first. And I had to hold myself through the hardship first. And that was a challenging journey. And I feel like I've really moved through a lot of the deep, dark stuff. And I feel like I really actually have the tools to continue to hold myself through the things that come in the future.
Wow. Everything that you just said just resonates so much with me, with the fear of going in and doing the work, the fear of even sitting down and meditating. So like you, I was so in the masculine, like I'm now a yoga teacher, but 5 years ago, I said the sentence, yoga is for pussies. And now I'm just like, yes, like, let's work on your energy. Like, let's focus on this. But yeah, and as well as people who are put here to heal, which we are, I think everyone at some, to some capacity we forget that we need to do our own work as well. So we're just like, no, because you can sense that you have that energy to give to people, to be able to hold that space for people, to help them through hardships. So I found in the past, especially in my past relationships, I would put everything about myself that needed to be healed on hold, on pause. Don't look at it. It's not as much as what this person's going through. I'm going to help them through this experience, through what they're going through, because they need it more than I do. I need for them to be held, to be seen, to be feeling like they're whole, so that then maybe they can start to see me back. That has been kind of my journey. So for you to say that, it's so interesting to kind of have experiences mirrored back to me, like that you've lived through as well. And I guess that's, what life is, I guess. But it's when I started to actually sit with myself, sit with my feelings, with the stories that I was telling myself, that things really did start to unfold for me. And, it's happening now, essentially all at once.
And usually when you're trying to heal everyone else, you attract a lot of shit for yourself, right?
Oh my
because
god,
it's everyone has to, and this is what I didn't realize early on, is you can't heal someone. You can hold space for them to heal themselves, but if everyone has free will, just like we talked about. If they don't want to, they're not going to.
Exactly.
And no matter how much you love someone, they're not going to heal until they want themselves to, and you're wanting them to heal is only a reflection of the healing that your soul really wants yourself, right?
Yeah.
So face yourself first, and then usually that person,
yes,
either they leave your life or they heal as well.
Yeah, no, 100%. But I would go those steps further. I was so afraid of my own healing that I would literally find people who needed to heal. I would go on little healing missions. I'm like, okay, you need to heal. Let's go. Let's do this. And I would just have such a wall up between myself and what I needed to heal and where I really needed to go deep. And it wasn't really, honestly, until the start of this year that I actually started to do that work properly. I got pretty much barrel rolled by life about a year and a half ago. And I was like, okay, I need to really focus on getting back on my feet again, in that, the hierarchy of needs. I needed to be able to survive again before starting to step into focusing on my own healing. So that is, the process that I sort of went through. But yeah, for you to speak on that, and I think, as you said, so many people are going to resonate with that conversation and with those comments. So thank you for sharing. And yeah, it's such a huge part of manifestation, of bringing into your life what you really want to, bring into your life, is healing. But I think a lot of people do but a lot of people stay stuck there because, we do hear that healing is a constant process. And on some level it is,
but it's not somewhere that we should say stay stuck if we've done that work. Like, we can start to move forward. You don't need to keep revisiting that. And this, I guess, is why I do want to do this podcast, is that there's so many different facets of healing, and not everything is going to work for, not one piece of healing is going to work for everybody. So I really want to bring discussions like this to this platform so that people know that there's options out there, but also to know that there's so much space beyond healing. There's joy beyond healing. There is your whole entire life beyond healing. It's just a small piece of the puzzle. Well, not a small piece, but it's a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the piece of the puzzle, essentially.
Yeah, there really is. Yeah, there's so much expansion beyond healing. And I think it can be hard for us sometimes, because for some people, it's like if you've identified with the wound inside of you, you almost identify with the healing, so you don't know who you are without the healing. So therefore you feel like you always need to heal, because who are you if you're not healing? Yeah. Right? And that can be a really scary psychological concept for somebody, because they don't identify with that inside of them. I had a client say to me recently, she's like, I'm happy a lot lately, and it feels really weird. And I was like, that's amazing. She's like, how do I feel okay with being happy a lot? And I was like, that's kind of like the next level, where it's like, it is such an expansive thing to be able to hold your joy and hold your bliss, and not actively think that something needs to happen for you to always be healing, but also when things happen, you can hold yourself through them. It's kind of that polarity. Yeah,
absolutely. Definitely. How do you find that you haven't kept yourself stuck in that healing process of just spinning your wheels in that one wound, as you say? And now when things come up for you, when life hurdles come up for you, how do you enjoy that hurdle, I guess, that process of needing to acknowledge that there's a lesson there and moving forward through it?
Yeah. So, I would say now I honor what comes up, because there's always going to be things that come up that happen in life. And one of the things that I speak about is so important is, and I used to not do this because I used to not know how to do it, is like, when something comes up, you have to feel it. Like, you have to actually allow yourself the space to feel it. And sometimes it depends on where you are, right? Like, if you're at work and something happens, like, maybe that's not the time, but it's like, you have to create the space for you to feel the emotions. And I was like totally in toxic positivity before, and I used to go straight to, it's fine, it's all good, feel positive, like, let's figure out the lesson, like, let's move forward. And it's like, no, you have to really honor that there is, every person has every single emotion inside of them. I used to say, I just don't have anger inside of me. Like, when he said, like, that is for pussies, like that just doesn't exist in me. I don't have any anger inside of me. Little did I know, started to do some like sacred anger work. I was like, oh, there's definitely anger inside of me. And so it's like, I guess my first step has just been like, I've been saying this to my clients recently. The other week I broke my toe, and it's really annoying because you need your toe to be able to walk a lot. Yeah. So I'm wobbling everywhere. And I said to my partner, because I was so frustrated at myself, I just literally walked into a door. Like, it's not even a good story. I was just walking. I took the corner really fast. It was so silly. And I said to my partner, I was like, I just need to have a pity party. Like, I just need to feel, I'm just really upset at myself. Like, I wanted to cry. I was really frustrated. And I was like, just give me an hour, just give me 2 hours, and I'm going to feel it. And then I just gave myself that time. And then on the other side, I was like, okay, cool, let's move forward. It is what it is. Like, I can't run anymore. I can't really walk that well, but it is what it is. And that's really helped in things that, are coming up now. And then from there, we can find the lesson. And then from there, we can, form the belief of what that means. And then from there, we can move forward. But we have to feel it first. And sometimes, like, I've had to create the situations. I do a lot of like full moon ceremonies with my clients and my groups, because the full moon can bring up lots of energy, and it's all about releasing. And so it's like guiding people through some movement. Movement is a beautiful way for us to kind of bring up emotion. Like putting on a sad song so we actually can like invoke the tears inside of us if we don't know how to start, and giving yourself the actual container to be like, you know what, I'm going to give myself half an hour, I'm going to give myself an hour this evening or today to just feel what I need to feel. And when you actually face that stuff, and this is something that I've like learned and I've seen, is when you actually learn, if you go straight into the eye of the needle and you go really into feeling the feelings, you're going to actually move through it so quickly, but you have to feel it. Whereas so many of us in this society, we don't want to touch our feelings with a 10-foot fucking pole. So it drags on in our life for months and for years because we haven't gone straight into it. But if you go straight into it, you can transcend it really, 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 really fast.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. I think in a sense, so this question of like being able to enjoy the hurdles, like I think the reality of it is sometimes you fucking don't. Like you're not going to like if you have something that is so shit happen to you, allow for it to be shit. You don't have to automatically go to be like, okay, it's a lesson. I know it's a lesson. And again, be in that toxic positivity because that ultimately does set you back as well. Like allow it to be the shittest thing ever. Like allow it to hurt, allow yourself to crumble a little bit and then pick up the pieces from there. Like you said, feel what you're going through. Allow it to be bad because otherwise it's just going to bubble over or you're going to put it in a box and you're going to have to deal with it in like 10, 15 years time. And you're going to be like, where the hell did that come from? So with you,
I heard this, someone say this recently that was like, you don't want to read a book that's like, I dreamed it and then it happened, boom, the end. You know what I mean? That's never been a movie. Like that's never been a book, that's never been a movie, that's not a good story. Can you imagine the end of your life? So you're like, I just thought of it, like I just wanted it to happen and the next day it showed up. It's like, no, we came down here on this human experience to like go through the hurdles and the ups and the downs and like sometimes in the moments when it's hard, I think about, cool, like how am I going to tell this story someday? Because it is going to be a story someday and it will be okay if I choose to know that it will be okay, but I also have to just acknowledge that it's shit right now. Yeah,
exactly. And acknowledge that it was shitty. Like, yes, there's a lesson there. I was speaking to one of my friends once and I was like, she goes, you just need to be grateful for the experience. And I'm like, no, fuck that. I am not grateful for a shitty time. I'm sorry. I didn't sign up for this. I did technically sell contract stuff, but like, I don't want this. Like, I am not ever going to turn around and be like, yes, so happy that happened to me. Like, no, it was a shit time. I did not enjoy myself. 10 out of 10, wouldn't recommend to a friend. But the lesson, completely invaluable. And for that, I can look back and acknowledge that it was something that I did need to go through. And in a sense, I can be grateful, but I can also acknowledge that it was never something that I wanted to reoccur again. And I think that is a big piece as well, of just like knowing that you don't have to, because I think being grateful for something that has been really impactful to you in a negative way can, I guess, dilute the lesson that you're getting from it. Like allow it to be hurtful. Like you, again, don't stay in that wound, move forward from it. But you don't have to sit there and be grateful for something that caused you so much pain and hurt. You don't have to be. You have to acknowledge the lesson. That's the difference there. That's, that's my sense of,
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah, how you move through it. And I love how people kind of look at spiritual beings as like, these people who are always light, love, toxic positivity and stuff like that. I'm just like, nah, man, like that's not me. Like I will tell you if something is shit or if I think it's shit or if I'm feeling like shit. Like, it's like for you breaking your toe, I was just like, oh, you poor thing. Like I would have,
So annoying.
It's so annoying.
It's like, I think sometimes the most spiritual thing can literally be like giving yourself space to have an anger fit or like to have a cry session.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and because it's like, I feel like what I hope and see for society is that we're moving into this place where we all like are more deeply authentic, right? And I think, we don't always see that online on social media, but like in, where mental health is more of a conversation and like the ability that we have, like I said earlier, like you can only hold people to the level that you've held yourself and they can only hold you to the level that they've held themselves. And so this deeper ability that we have to be able to hold ourselves for the shit things, it's like the deeper that we actually can help everyone at the same time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, like being authentic in things that come up is like, you're not always going to be happy. You're going to have, that spectrum of emotions. I always say as well, like saying like, screaming or like just getting really angry. Oh, my dog just sneezed. Or saying like, get absolutely fucked can be a form of sound healing. Like it can be. Like it can be so good for your soul to just let that anger and frustration out.
Totally.
And then to move forward from it. And then you can come back to being light, love, and spiritual and accepting the good things in. So yes, authenticity through things that come up is so important. And yeah. Okay, on to the last couple of questions, Danny. I've really enjoyed talking to you. Like I feel like I could just
lovely. I loved it.
I feel like I could just chat to you for like hours and hours, but
I know.
yes. So being an Olympian, you're in the public eye, like on just an insane level of like actually being in the public eye, but you're not only judged on your athleticism and like what your body can do, but you're also judged on what your body looks like. And you also mentioned that, you struggled with your weight and your body image and I guess those feelings of being good enough. How did you navigate those while you're training for the Olympics and knowing that that is the platform that you're putting yourself on to essentially be judged on what your body can do and how your body looks?
Oh my gosh, it was so hard. It was really hard in many ways because it's such an aesthetic sport. The good bad thing of it is that when I was training, like I was just training so many hours that I naturally just became obviously very fit and like relatively thin. The issue with that though is that because I thought that was what happened, I was like, oh, I've dealt with all my body stuff. I've dealt with it all. And then I retired and I was like, whew, it all came up because I just hadn't faced it, right? And, it was the issue that was challenging was now I'm really realizing how much body dysmorphia I had because I would go through these periods where I would, train for a lot and then we'd have an off season and I would put weight back on, which is normal and fine. But I would like literally go into spirals of anxiety and crying because I thought that I was like a fat lard, which is a horrible thing. And it was also not true. And now looking back, with the perspective, I was like, oh my gosh, like I was like so fit and I was totally fine, but I would allowed so much of my body dysmorphia to hold me back. And so in many ways that was a really big challenge, being in that world. And it's a part of the sport, unfortunately, and I see that it is starting to change. But like one of the things that also helped in that is I remember, so in synchronized swimming, Russia is like the champion. They're like always at the top. They're very, very good. And so I was in the changing room with the Russians at the Olympic Games, and they had won so we competed in 2 events. They had won the first event and we were going into the second event and like they were basically going to win again, which they ended up doing. And I remember I was in the changing room with them and they were standing in the mirror. And these girls were like, the synchronized swimming bodies are very similar to like ballerinas. It's like very like long and lean, not a lot of body fat. And these girls were like looking at themselves in the mirror and pinching their skin and they were saying how fat they were. And I was like, are you kidding me? And I had this moment I was like, oh my God, this is literally like the pinnacle of like fitness and success and they're not even happy with their body? Like, what the hell? Like, there's seriously something that's screwed up here, right? And that was one of those moments where I was like, okay, we have some things to fix here. And so when I was in synchro, I was really in this like energy of like fake it till you make it, and not in a way of being inauthentic, but I was like, even though there was times where I felt that I wasn't confident, I just had to basically embody the version of myself that was confident to be able to get by. That definitely like helped in some aspects with my confidence and stuff in many ways. But then when I retired, I really had to face like the body image dysmorphia. And I also had a lot of health issues when I retired because I was like on the edge of burnout too. Like I was exhausted, like my hair was falling out, like I was like had really bad skin, like just all of these things were kind of like built up. I feel like in the past like 2 years, I really had the chance to kind of face that body image stuff, and that was partially in my healing process. And then even more recently through just my own process of like regulating my eating, because I definitely had disordered eating for a while as well. Because I had been an athlete and I would just eat so much because I would burn so much. And then I felt like if I wasn't training, I couldn't eat, which isn't true. And so literally one of the biggest things that's helped since then is literally facing myself in the mirror, and it was one of the things that sparked my program called Devotion, which is basically a body love journey where it's like sit down and look at yourself in the fucking mirror and get all your clothes off and look at yourself. And it can be the scariest thing, but one of the things that is so powerful as well is like I feel like that process really helped me heal my body dysmorphia, because we create things in our mind and we see ourselves from different perspectives. But when you start to look in the mirror, and I had this experience myself, it's like if you do this consistently, you will actually start to look in the mirror and love yourself. And I know that can sound like the craziest thing, and I had women that would start this program with me and they're like, I just don't think it's going to happen for me. And then they literally would say to me like 20 days in, they're like, oh my gosh, I actually like what I see. Because it's exposure therapy, right? It's like we're basically looking at our shadows. It's like, and if you keep looking at your shadows long enough, you'll realize that first of all, they're not true, and second of all, they're not that bad, and you can love those parts of yourself. And so that's probably been one of like the biggest parts of my journey around my body and stuff.
Yeah, I think women especially, unfortunately, like I think we've been shown such a small, I guess, example of what women are supposed to look like. And that has come from like television and media and, growing up with, models on covers of like magazines. There is nothing wrong with those body types, but it's just that they're not the only ones out there. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I think
it's starting to change a lot.
Absolutely.
Like, there's so much more body, like,
absolutely.
Even, like I was in sync, like I got into this, like into the national team realm in 2014, and I feel like there's been so much more body positivity even in the past 8 years, like even the past few years, which has been so good for our culture. But we can continue that, right? Yeah,
100%. And I think I'm so happy to see that things are shifting and changing, and that it's not just one body type being shown or being admired or told that it's beautiful. It's all of them. And again, I cannot wait to see the type of human beings that are like coming next. I'm just like, oh, what's next season holding, kind of thing. But yeah, I think what you experienced and what you went through is such an exaggerated version, because you were on such like a public platform, of what a lot of people experience in terms of recognizing that their bodies are amazing and beautiful, and they do all of these incredible things for us. But we also naturally compare ourselves to other people as well. And what you said is like, being in the changing rooms with athletes who are at the top of their game, who are training insane amounts of time, who are eating, not 1 calorie over what they're supposed to, still looking in the mirror and thinking that they're not good enough. And they're like winning gold medals. And, all this sort of stuff. So I think that really speaks to the fact, like you said, there's something really wrong with that picture. Yeah. And again, I'm so glad that it is changing. And I'm so glad that, you have this work, that you can do your devotion program of acknowledging, that your shadow is kind of bullshit. Like you're telling lies to yourself. I think it's really important to be doing that work. Something that I still struggle with as well, like the idea of sitting in front of a mirror, really truly looking at myself. I'm just like, no.
It can be so confronting, but I think especially anyone, and I would say 95% of people out there, like especially women, have body image stuff. But I think it's so important, because I think it's like that, whether it be the first piece or the last piece of true liberation, because if we are always obsessed about our body, you have so much mental space that is being taken up that isn't serving you. Yeah. And it's like once we start to delete that narrative in our mind, we actually have more time for ourselves, for our gifts, for our passions, for what we're wanting to do in this world, for creativity, for innovation. And like I even have these moments where I remember I was like, I used to spend so much of my day thinking about what I looked like, and like that I didn't look good enough. And I'm like, oh my, like it would have been hours, and like now it's like instead of spending those hours beating myself up or not looking good enough, it's like I serve, I have ideas that come through, I like live my fucking life, and it's such a powerful piece. And I think again, it's one of those things, it's like don't think that every day I'm perfect. I'm still like, I have devotion as well for myself, because I'm like, cool, like, okay, Danielle, we need to do this again. We need to sit down again, because it's like we can have moments where we're triggered or things happen or our body changes, and we need to remind ourselves of that work that is so integral and important, because our body is our greatest gift. It's like the house for our soul. And if we don't treat it well, how are we going to be able to do this work that we're meant to do in this world?
100%. I totally and fully agree with you so much. So that brings me back to our last little question, which is, working through your body image issues and being on, I guess, a global stage at the World Olympics. What would you go back and tell yourself back then, like that now about, this body image piece of healing? Like, what would you want to gift your past self if you could, if you had the ability to?
Yeah, I'd probably say to her, it's funny because when I was actually at the Olympic Games and I was the smallest that I've ever been, and it's so funny too, because I was like really thin at that time for me, and I'm quite tall. So, I'd have people be like, oh my gosh, you're so skinny, you look so great. Like we validate people with that, right? And so it's like that built my ego up. But when I was at the Olympics, I was actually in my greatest state of gratitude for my body, because I was like, look at what I've done. In those 2 weeks, I was in this really crazy state of gratitude, which was really beautiful. And then after that, then I like spiraled and stuff, because I felt like I was putting weight back on. But it's like, I feel like in all those times, I would say to her, it's like, I know that you can't see it now, but one day you will see how beautiful that you are, and you will cry tears of joy instead of tears of sadness for the body that you have. And I cannot wait for that day to come, and I hope that you can find it more in the now, but I promise you it will come. Because I used to have so much anxiety, and I remember I'd come home and I'd cry to my partner at the time because I felt so much body image shit. And if she knew that I would have peace, I think she'd be really proud.
I love that. I love that so much. That's amazing and incredible. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you've shared. You are such an amazing human being, and I can't wait for what's next for you. I can't wait to, keep following you and your journey, and obviously, hopefully a few cheeky stories from the Caribbean over the next couple of days, just to make me jealous AF, basically. Our last final question before we get into where people can follow you and, work with you and all that is, what are you currently trying to let go of?
What am I currently trying to let go of? I would say the belief that I should be further ahead than I am. I think like when I started out in this whole like outside of like retiring from sport, and I was like, I like thought that I'd go from like 0 to like I don't know, Justin Bieber celebrity like in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it didn't, and that's totally fine because it's been what it's meant to be. And so I think that I've placed like I have placed expectations on myself of where I should be, and I like I'm continuing to let that go. And just I've been really even more deeply falling in love with the process as I've been getting into more alignment with the work that I'm doing. I've just been allowing myself to feel more bliss for where I am at and just be really proud. I'm turning 30 in like 6 weeks, which is crazy. And so I feel like 30 is kind of always one of those moments for people where you start to like, I'm a very nostalgic person, but like you start to really think. And I think there's times on myself where I've probably been kind of hard on myself in the sense of my like business where I should be, and just continuing to let those expectations go. As I say, I'm living it as I'm teaching it. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's such a good thing to work on letting go of, because again, like that's balancing the masculine and the feminine and just allowing yourself to be in that space and allowing it to be the process that it's going to be. So that is a beautiful thing. And something that I also need to work on as well, like as we all do. So if our listeners are wanting to work with you, or if they want to listen to your podcast, if they want to read your book, where can people find you, if you want to let us know?
Absolutely. I would say heading to my Instagram is the best place, which is Danielle _. You guys can find my link to my book in my bio there. It's called The Unlikely Olympian. I run programs. I have some beautiful programs around self-worth, around mindset and manifestation, around body love. And I'm also in the realm of, since I've been in the online business world for a few years and really even though there's parts of me that wish that I was further ahead, I've also done well in that area. So I'm really loving helping souls that are really stepping into their online business journey. And so I have some offerings coming up in regards to, people that are wanting to build their business online. And then I have a really beautiful program at the end of 2022 called Envision, which is all about really dreaming and setting our desires and our goals for the following year. So I do that each year, and it's such a fun little program that I run, and it's really accessible for people. So I have some pretty rad group programs. So if you ever want to work with me, that is the place to go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Danielle. I have loved this interview and I can't wait to share it.
Thank you so much for what you do. It's so important, and I love that you are doing something that lights you up and really showing people other ways of so many different ways of healing. And you thank you for the light that you offer to the world as well.
Thank you.
I hope you all really enjoyed that episode of the Healing Bridge podcast. I hope you learned something. I hope it expanded your mindset, and I cannot wait to have you back